Gabriela, you said you want to ask.
Sim. Eu tinha uma pergunta, vou falar em
Yes,
português
I have a
também.
question and I'll speak Portuguese.
Eu tinha uma pergunta sobre a linguagem.
It's a question about
E é uma pergunta
language.
para o Mia, mas também é para o David,
A
uma vez
question for Mia, but also a question for
ver
David.
os desafios da
I'd
tradução
like to know what are the challenges
dos
of translation
neologismos. E a minha pergunta era
or
precisamente sobre os
neologisms.
neologismos, as palavras
So that's
que
my
Mia
question.
inventa e que,
Precisely the
curiosamente,
words that
estavam
Mia
presentes nos primeiros livros,
creates
mas nestes últimos já
that
não
were
estão
present in some of your
presentes.
first books, but they are not
Uma
that
vez li
present
uma entrevista com o Mia,
in your most
em
recent
em
books.
que dizia
Once
precisamente
I
que
saw an
era
interview
intencional abandonar
with you and you
os
said that
neologismos.
you had abandoned
E eu achei isso
neologisms
interessante
intentionally.
porque eu, como
I found it
leitora, eu
very
tenho que dizer que
interesting.
sou
As a
uma
reader,
leitora
I
compulsiva
have
dos
to
seus
say
livros
that
desde os meus
I
20
read
anos,
your
mais
books
ou menos.
uh,
E eu, de facto, não
as
tinha
a
reparado
compulsion ever since
que o
I
Mia
was
tinha
20.
deixado de usar neologismos.
And I had noticed, Mia stopped
E
using
eu penso que
neologisms.
isso, bem, isto é a minha interpretação, lá está, mas eu penso
At
que isso
least this
se
is my
deve ao
interpretation.
facto
I
de
believe
que
this is due to the
a escrita do
fact
Mia tem algo de
that your
deslumbramento,
writing, Mia,
é como se estivéssemos a olhar o mundo pela
it's
primeira
as
vez,
if
lá
we are
está.
looking at the world for the first time.
E, portanto, mesmo
Astound.
que a escrita não tenha neologismos,
And even
os
if you
neologismos
don't
estão
have new
lá,
words in
porque,
your writing,
não é? Uma palavra nova,
neologisms
uma palavra
are
inventada é a
there.
mesma coisa do que
An invented word
uma sensação inventada,
is just like an
um
invented
primeiro olhar, não é? Um
feeling,
primeiro olhar
like
para
a
uma coisa,
first perspective, a
ou
first
um pensamento que nunca
gaze,
tínhamos tido, não é? Então
or
eu
maybe
penso
a
que essas
thought we
coisas estão
never
muito
had
ligadas
before.
e eu, curiosamente,
So I believe these things are very
não
much
faço distinção.
connected.
Quando estou a ler um livro seu
I
agora,
draw no
estes
difference
últimos,
when I
não
read one
reparo
of
que
your
não há
first books.
neologismos, porque para mim
I don't
continuam a estar lá.
notice that you don't use
E
neologisms
então,
anymore. For me, they're
gostaria de
still
ouvir um
there.
pouco
So I wanted to hear you
a
a
falar,
little
um pouco
bit
falar sobre isto, sobre o facto de ter
about
abandonado os
this,
neologismos e
the fact
porquê,
that
não
you
é?
abandoned neologisms and why.
E depois de ouvir o David falar
And I
sobre
wanted
os
to hear
desafios de
David
traduzir
about
estas
the
palavras,
challenges of
que eu
translating
imagino que seja, se a
these
tradução já é
words.
uma tarefa
If
complexa, não
translation
é?
by itself is such a
Imagino
complex
que desta
task,
forma a tarefa se
let alone
complexifica ainda mais.
translating neologisms.
Era isso, obrigada.
So thank you. That was my question.
Então, talvez possa começar. Eu
So
acho que eu
maybe I can
comecei
begin.
criando neologismos porque
I
quase
started
que não é possível não
to
fazer
create
isso.
words because in Mozambique it's impossible not to do that.
Que a maior parte dos moçambicanos
You know
não
that
tem,
Mozambicans, most of
não
them,
fala português ou
they
não
don't
tem,
speak Portuguese
não tem português
or
como a primeira
they
língua, é uma
don't
segunda
have
língua.
Portuguese as their
Então,
first
não é só
language.
que é outra
Portuguese is a
língua, mas
second language.
a língua
It's not
original
just that
de
they
Moçambique, para a
have
maior parte dos
another language.
moçambicanos,
For most
traduz uma outra
Mozambicans,
visão do mundo.
the original language represents a
Então,
different
há coisas que
world
não têm equivalência
view.
mesmo.
So some
E o que me
concepts have no
interessava quando
equivalent,
eu
really.
viajava por entre essas
And when I
palavras
traveled,
inventadas em
through
português,
these
os
invented
moçambicanos
words in
fazem isso todos
Portuguese,
os dias. Quer dizer,
it's precisely because
eles não ficam
Mozambicans, they do
atrapalhados, não
that
ficam
every day. For them, it's
subordinados
not confusing. They're not
àquilo que é o regulamento da língua
subjected to rules,
inventam.
to language
Eles
rules.
criam. Então
They
não é difícil
create
só alterar.
words.
E o que eu quis
So it's not just for literary
trazer
purposes.
para dentro nos livros
So at first, I wanted to bring this freedom, this creative freedom into my books, something that I found very close to poetry. Because here, for instance, the difference between what has a soul and what hasn't, it's non-existent. A stone, a river, a mountain, they have a soul. They're not seen as inorganic matter. So you said, the stone is sleeping by the river. A Mozambican would say that, and they don't mean to be poetic. Because a stone can be asleep. A rock can be asleep. But after a while, I wanted to be surprised by what I couldn't do, that I need to challenge myself. And I realized that I'm led by this poetic vision. And that's what draws a bridge or creates a bridge to this other world with this different mental universe that is so characteristic of Mozambique. You know, a river has a voice here. A river can talk to me. A tree can give me a hug. Some colleagues tell me, I'm tired, so this evening I became an animal. And they are biologists. So they have a foot in modern life, but they also have a foot in this universe, this anemic, in the sense of soul, anima.
For me, I mean, Mia has written so much that the neologisms belong to a certain part of his work. And to me, it's the shorter narratives, the ones that he began writing, the short stories, the crónicas, that very often he did that. And maybe it's because of the kind of obvious informal oral quality of those narratives that invited the neologisms for him to explore the way that Mozambicans use Portuguese or might use Portuguese or could use Portuguese. But in the more recent novels, particularly in the trilogy, of course, and in Mapeador de Ausências, the cartographer absences, there is greater emphasis on the written language and letters, and the neologisms don't occur quite so much, although occasionally there is a play on words. In English, of course, it doesn't always work where it works in Portuguese, so you have to find another way. You have to translate the spirit of the play, if you like, rather than the, strictly speaking, the exact translation of what has been said in the original. I have given examples in the past, and I can't think of any at the moment, but you know, they're there and recorded. But I think essentially when you are translating a neologism in Portuguese that somehow doesn't work directly in English, then you have to find another way of doing it. And therefore, as I say, translating the spirit of what is being played with rather than the concrete reality of the Portuguese in front of you.